everyone, and welcome to the Kristen Weardon Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am always excited for our guests, but today I have a very special guest. I have Jessica Higdon with us today. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we've known each other for quite some time, right? What were we just saying? How long?
Like 14 years.
So, yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So we go way back. So this should be a good interview.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, it should be. I mean, things that interest us may hopefully interest them. So
I like to think so.
Yeah.
So we're going to start at the beginning because for me, that seems to work chronologically. So you're originally from Chagrin Falls.
Yes,
Okay.
Chagrin Falls, Ohio.
So what brings somebody from Chagrin Falls, Ohio to Naples, Florida? And was it a straight shot?
Well, it was a straight shot, but my parents were actually never married. So if you want to go really far back to the beginning,
Okay.
they were never married, and I was a love child. Okay, so my stepmom and my father have been together for a very long time, still are together, and they had been coming back and forth to Florida before his wife, my stepmom, had even known that I existed. When she found out that I was here, right, and she met me, and we all, she's amazing, still is to this day, they decided that, okay, like, we're going to move to Florida full time, and Jessica has to come with us because she's a part of our life now. So my mom, my stepmom, my dad, we all moved down to Florida. They had been going to Marco Island every winter, and so they moved me down here to Naples, Florida.
Wow, that's really interesting. So that goes to how the co-parenting can work, even when it wasn't co-parenting as a word. So it's kind of interesting that, one, I really didn't know that story. I think I heard it a little bit, but we just make it work, how people make it work. Like my stepfather made it work. My grandparents took over for me for that missing parent growing up.
Yeah.
So, and we turned out great.
Yeah. Hey, I think we're doing pretty well.
I think we can overcome adversities.
Yeah.
When we try, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Regardless of what we're handed.
And I was meant to be here in Florida. I love it. So
I didn't like it when I first moved here, but I think it's because my whole family lived back home. But when the hurricane came, I called it my home.
Interesting.
When Hurricane Irma.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I'm like, this happened to my community. And I went, whoa.
It's my community.
It's my community.
Yeah.
I've worked at other hurricanes, other communities. And then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, we can't have this. We need to fix this.
Yeah.
And it's like, what can I do to fix it?
Aww.
And so, yeah, I didn't like Florida when I first moved here, but now it's my home.
Yeah.
I like it.
Totally.
And it doesn't snow.
And it doesn't snow, at least in our part of Florida.
Right. I wouldn't trade that at all.
Yeah. No.
So tell me, I know, but our audience doesn't know. So you met Ray when you were how old?
19.
19. So you were young. I remember that. And so how did you met Ray, he had just lost everything. I knew that. So how did you support each other during that time? Because you were young, starting out. He was restarting after really, that time was devastating for everybody.
2008, yeah.
That downturn of the economy was hard on everybody. So how do you feel that you two supported each other back then during that difficult time that a lot of people were going through?
Yeah, I always knew and I think when you meet someone, like, this is my person, at least for that season. Of course, he's my person for life, but when you know. And I met him, and he was just so amazingly motivated and brilliant and loving and kind and caring. Like, he had every characteristic that I could have ever wanted in a man. Okay. And even though his results weren't speaking to who was inside, I knew that he would become something great. I just knew it. I just had that inner feeling, that inner voice of, this is an amazing man. He's going to do great things. And so for women especially, I think it's really important that they remember to support their men, even when the results aren't there, because that speaks into them more than you'll ever understand. Men need that support. They need that pick me up, and especially from their women, especially from their girlfriends, their wives. They need that support. So I think my belief in him, and I didn't do it to be nice. I didn't do it to support him necessarily, but just because I had that belief in him, I fully believe that that catapulted him and gave him more energy to get to where we are today. So I think my support in that arena, he was completely broke. In fact, more than broke, like $1 million in debt, which I didn't even know. But when that came to the surface, I just knew he's going to get out of it. I just knew. And for him, the other way around, you know, he's always been supportive of me. No matter what I want to do, whether I want to be a stay-at-home mom, which to me is the hardest job on planet Earth, or I want to go out and do, you know, tackle a career, which I love doing new things. I do. I think it's fun, it's exciting, and whoever said we have to put a limitation or a box on one thing that we do our entire life? So he's always been supportive of me, and during that time in 2008 when everybody, you know, real estate was just crazy, and for those that don't know, he had hundreds of rental properties, and he had over 14 foreclosures, and just, it was not a good time for him. There was a lot of fear going around, but we just kept the faith and kept our little bubble alive, which was, we're going to get out of this. And even on the darkest days where the power may have been shut off, which there were days where that was imminent from happening, we kept the faith, and we knew that, okay, this is not going to stay this way. We can always climb ourselves out of it. So it's easier said than done. There were definitely days where we didn't feel that way, but having each other and supporting each other versus tearing each other down really, really helped in that season.
As you're talking, I envision you both leaning on each other. That's the first thing that comes to my mind's eye, is I can just see both of you just like leaning into each other. I don't know, that's the visual I got as you're talking. And so that. I think when you do that and you know the other person's got your back and there's no judgment on the past, you're just kind of like, okay, what do we need to do to make today work?
Absolutely.
And that's the feeling I get from the two of you.
Thank you.
And it's interesting because there's a couple of questions in here, so I'm glad we touched on this, because the age difference too, like there was an obstacle there even with outside people. And there's a word, which actually ends up at the end of the questions, was fortitude. Every time I think of parts of your story that I'm aware of, I think of fortitude, because you didn't let certain things get in your way, like what other people say, for example. And you already answered one of the questions I had was, how did you know that Ray was the guy? And you answered that. And because I in my coaching, I find people like, oh, this is my guy. And I'm like, oh, really?
Is it?
Is it? Are you sure?
Yeah.
He's got a court date when?
Right.
And your parents aren't happy. I just find that some women nowadays are just looking for that person, that they don't see the full picture of a person.
Well, and not to interrupt,
No,
but I'll
please.
just say that we've certainly had our ups and downs, especially in the beginning. It was not all, you know, butterflies and rainbows. And I think if you're looking for a relationship that is, then it's not a real relationship. I mean, of course, in the beginning, everything is great. But when you have a true relationship with somebody, conflict is absolutely going to come up, or it's not a true relationship. So I remember there was a day where I loaded. Ray wasn't up yet, which is rare because he's always up before me. He's up at like 3 or 4 a.m. It's crazy, and there was a day where we had just been fighting about things that I won't get into, but I packed up the entire car before he was awake, and I was getting ready to leave. Like, that would have been it. And I knew in my heart of hearts that if I left, his personality, we would never get back together. He would just shut that door because he'd be so hurt. I just knew it. And literally in that moment, and there's very few moments in my life that I can say this has happened, but in that moment, I knew God was telling me, if you do this, it was almost a clear, audible voice. If you do this, your life will never be the same. Just so you know, if you do this, your life will never be the same. And I just stood there and I sat in the car for like probably 10 minutes, just thinking and overthinking, and I just knew in my gut, in my spirit, nope, gotta go back in. This is not worth losing this amazing man over.
Wow, that is incredible. That is incredible. I love that for you though. That you knew to listen to that inner voice, to listen to the message you were getting. I think sometimes either way. Sometimes we get the message, run.
Right.
No, I'm going to stay.
Totally. You're so right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you got the other message, which was like, listen, you know who this person is. What are you going to do? If you change and go a different direction, might not work out for you. So might as well stay and let it work out. How long have you been married now?
It'll be 13 years in November.
Wow. Wow. So I probably met you right around the time you guys got married then. I think shortly thereafter.
2011. Yeah.
So yeah, it was right after that.
Yeah.
I think I met you, but I don't know, you might have been married or not yet. So advancing your journey in life, you and Ray developed a very successful business in the network marketing, and then you went into training space, and then you were in the marketing space. So there's another place, there's fortitude in the multi-level marketing. So you both created this business, and again, the fortitude, where you just looked around and said, no, this is what I'm going to do, and then turn it into the marketing and training. How do you deal, like now you've got two instances in your life where people are like, what?
What?
Why are you doing your first year with this guy who lost everything, and then that works out great, and now you're, oh, I'm going to go into this career that everybody goes, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, very negative. You know, there's all the naysayers out there, which I know a lot of people who've been very, very successful in network marketing.
Sure.
So I'm not one of them. But how did you just say, again, I'm going to head this direction and not listen to the naysayers?
You know, honestly, I don't know that I can properly answer that question because I never in my whole life have listened to naysayers.
Okay.
So I shouldn't say never, right? Occasionally you let them in and they can bring you down, but I would say most of my life I just didn't give them importance.
Okay.
So the inner, however you translate it, God, your inner voice, that feeling, that gut feeling, that knowing, an inner knowing that I have. And I think a lot of women have it, actually. They just ignore it. But women have that inner knowing. I just knew it was what I was meant to do. I looked at the model and I said, this makes sense. I brought it home to my dad to show him because he was a very successful businessman and I looked up to him, still do. He's amazing. And he told me, oh, it's a pyramid, don't do it. And just like, didn't even read it. And I was like, but he didn't even look at it. And that just sparked my interest of, why isn't he even looking at this thing? And then I just reread the model. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And just that inner knowing of, this is a very simple, easy, methodical way to get to the next goal that I have in life. And so I just don't give them a lot of importance, and I never have. And to somebody who does, I would just say practice it one naysayer at a time. You know, don't try and tackle. If you are someone who takes all of that in all the time and let other people affect the way that you live your life, tackle one person at a time that's really in the back of your mind, just not allowing them in minute by minute. And eventually you'll train yourself, you'll train your brain, you'll train your mind to not take that in.
I think the naysayers are the big dream killers of people.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot. I know in your trainings, I've seen some of them obviously over the years. And in any trainings, a lot of times when they're talking about whether it be sales or marketing or just having a job, you know, you have to deal with some people who are negative.
Absolutely.
And being able to say, no, this is working for me now. And until it doesn't, I'm going to head this direction. I think so many people listen to the outside voices instead of their inside voice. So I agree with that. And I think women do have an intuition. I think we're just given it.
Yeah.
You know, because we have the kids and why is it quiet in the house? That's another one. You know, you're like, I just have these things inside of me. If we listened more to that, I think we'd trust ourselves more. I don't know how exactly to word that.
Yeah, no, absolutely we would. And it's not to say that I don't take other people's feelings or thoughts or considerations into consideration. I do. And sometimes as women, we do way too much. I'm not exempt from that. But when it comes to big decisions, I just don't think it matters.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's not your dream, it's mine. So.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. It's my dream.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
I love
absolutely.
that. I love that. We got a new one today. That's my dream.
That's my dream.
No shit on me.
That's right. No shitting.
No shitting. I love that. So you shifted into this social media marketing, and when it was still emerging, and you kind of like grabbed the bull by the horns, and I know a lot of people looked up to you. You had some really great success in the social media space. Versus then versus now, how do you feel about social media, and how do you think it translates to business now? Whereas before, it was kind of the Wild West. You could really be out there and just woo.
Yeah.
And now, so tell me what you think about it then versus now.
That's such a great question. So back then, it was really first starting up and coming. People were figuring it out. It was kind of the Wild West, and it was built on relationships. And where I really had my success was formulating relationships with people I didn't know. And a lot of that has gone away. A lot. People can say that they're building relationships, which in a way they are, but the personal one-on-one relationships, a lot of that has kind of shifted in social media. So I think where it's really amazing for business is that it's free advertising, right? Is really what it's become. I mean, you can build a relationship with someone, they think of you, you have that over and over again where they're seeing you over and over and over. So when they actually need what you are solving, the problem you're solving, or need your product, you come to their mind, right? And it's free. So you can fail a bazillion times and it's still free, and you still can keep doing it over and over again until you figure it out, until you make a sale. I don't see the one-on-one particularly growing in any way, shape, or form. And people are now focusing more on how many likes, how many views, how many clicks, how many comments, versus how much money did I actually make. And the money is coming from, not that those things are bad, those are great things. It's just how much money are you leaving on the table because you're so focused on, oh, I only got 2 comments. But what if those 2 comments are people who would want to buy from you? So it's been a cultural shift. I can't stand people saying, look at me on social media all day. I think there's a shift happening where people are being more real. They're actually craving those relationships. They're coming out and giving you a reason to interact with what they're doing versus just look at this Lambo and this big house. Aren't I awesome? And I think that's a good shift, obviously. But the social media back then is not the social media today, and it will continue to transpire and unfold, and we'll just see. But people they have information overload right now. Yeah. So it takes a special person and a person who is dedicated to their business to really make an impact and see the difference from social media as their main platform these days.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I find is that people really want more real. They want to see what's going on every day. They want to see what's going on with the interaction, but they want to see it in a real life mode. They don't necessarily need or care about the Lambo anymore. Mm-mm. Because now everybody's got one, apparently.
Right. Right. I can just rent one at my dealership, or I can call a friend and
right, exactly.
have it for my video.
Right. And so people are even starting to wonder, is that your Lambo? Mm-hmm. But if you pull up in your Toyota Corolla or your Honda Accord, they're like, okay, this person's real. Just like a lot of things I'm seeing of filming in the car has become very popular, because it's a space that, one, is quiet. If you have kids at home, I've learned that. You can say anything you want in the car and nobody's bothering you.
So true.
But it's real to people because everybody relates.
Yeah.
They've been in their car and had those thoughts or had that conversation. So you mentioned the one-on-one and so do you feel like social media, we used to have the one-to-many, but still the one-on-one. Do you think the shift is more to one-on-one again versus the one-to-many, or you think there's still more for both?
No, I think I think that's going to take a long time to come back in social media if it comes back. It's still happening. I'm not saying it's not. I mean, there's still people who are building those relationships every day, of course. But on a mass scale, people are just so used to posting a video. And I mean, they're literally conditioned to, I have to post this to get this amount of likes, to get this amount of recognition, whether you realize that's what you're doing or not, that's what you're doing. And then, how am I going to translate this into a sale? It's an afterthought, right? Versus you know what? Who do I really want to help today? Right. What's one thing out of my day that I can do that creates a message for someone that's really going to resonate with them? And then maybe I reach out to 5 to 10 of those people and have that one-on-one interaction. I don't know, and we work with a lot of leaders and trainers and phenomenal ones. The best of the best are doing that, but I don't know too many people who are doing that at all. Right. As far as actually reaching out and having.
Well, you just said that there might be 2 likes, but those 2 likes can be converted into a customer.
Yeah.
And that's what the numbers matter at the end, not in that beginning of the likes and the follows. I know for myself, I started doing the thank you for the follow.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe the response that I've gotten. And off of that response, I've actually gotten some weirdly bigger followers, a couple 100,000 people that are following them. Like, I don't know how you ended up on my page, but okay. And I think it's because I'm reaching out to someone that they know, they see me interacting with them, and then they're like, oh, who's this? They check out my page, and then they're like, oh, this might be somebody I want to work with. And then I say the same thing to them. How can I help you with your business?
Yeah.
If there's anything ever I can do, share it with me. I'll share it. And I've noticed that it's almost like the one-to-many becomes the one-to-one, but you still have to broadcast.
Absolutely. I'm not saying don't do those things. I think you absolutely should do those things. Post, get it out there. Like I said, it's free advertising essentially.
Isn't that great?
It's great. It's great. Just the difference between then and now is clearly the relationship piece and actually realizing there's a human being on the other side and how can I really solve a problem for them and what they're thinking.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I love that you said that. And being the marketing in the social media space, I think it's important to hear that from you because I don't think enough people are actually saying it either. If they are, people aren't hearing it. I don't know where it's getting missed somewhere. So now you have this flourishing career. You had 2 children, right? Now you have 2 children. Then you relocated and moved how many times?
Oh, geez, you're going to make me count.
Right? Okay, wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Then you co-authored a book with Ray, and then you started investing in real estate. I didn't overlook anything up to that point, right?
I don't think so. We did hit Inc. 5,000, which was awesome.
Okay.
Yep. And
I did not know that. That's great.
Yep. And then, co-authored a book.
So how did you successfully, I just want to make sure I got the timeline because there's a lot that happened in just a short period of time, like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you successfully navigate the challenges of parenthood along with your professional ambitions and various endeavors up to that time? Because we haven't gotten to the next part.
Yes. Yes. Up to that time. Help. Just not being afraid to ask for help, honestly, and abolishing the mom guilt. I mean, it still creeps up on me probably daily, but at least I can catch it now and recognize it and know that my kids are going to grow up and I'm going to be an afterthought to them. It is what it is. They're going to have their own families. My reason for being on planet Earth is my reason for being on planet Earth, right? It's my everything, and I want to show them what stepping into your vision looks like, and I want to always have that next step and that next goal so that I can show them that you never have to stop following your dreams, right? So the mom guilt that so many moms face by not being there every moment or not saying the right thing or not doing the right thing, I think holds them back from quite a bit. And I'm just speaking from experience because the first few years, I mean, oh my gosh, I had postpartum. I didn't want to leave that child's side. Of course, I never want to leave my children, ever. And when they're old enough, they'll come along with me to everything. But for me to say, I'm going to sacrifice this huge goal over here, because I need to do their laundry or I need to make sure that I make this specific meal for them. They're never going to remember those things. That's something that Ray brought up to me one time when I was having my mom guilt saga going through my head. He's like, babe, they're never going to remember who folded their socks. So I was not afraid to ask for help. And still, I mean, we have an army, and whatever we can bring them to and bring them along the journey with, like speaking or what we do, and wherever we need the help, we're not afraid to ask for it.
I love that you said that about not being afraid to ask for help. Being here in Florida and having children, I had no family here.
Mm-hmm.
I had their family who weren't really happy with me or whatever that was. And so I didn't want to leave my kids with them. And, you know, you don't want to leave your kids with people who aren't crazy about you. And
no,
yeah,
not usually a good
right, not usually a good thing. So I would sit there and I'd say, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And how am I going to go to the dentist? How am I going to do my hair? Like, what I need to breathe.
Yeah.
And so finally I got over that and I was like, okay, I need some help. And I was fortunate enough to be able to have someone come to the house and help when I needed it.
Yeah.
And I know that I was blessed that way, but I also know a few other people who have family close by and they'll say, listen, can we work out a schedule? Can you watch, you know, so I can go to the doctor? I mean, I see people who just, they don't want to leave their children either. I had one mom I was working with and she sat there and had the baby monitor off and didn't know. And at one point, the dad's like, what is that noise? And she went in there and the baby had been crying. So, of course, she goes back through the history of the monitor to see how long the baby was crying. And it was 30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm like, she's going to be okay. She's not even going to remember. And it's about time for her to start sleeping in her crib and doing these things. She goes, but she was like, she was doing the thing and she was so sad. And I said, I get it, but you can't beat yourself up over it. There's going to be that day you go to grab your kid and they end up falling and maybe need stitches. So
guilty. Yeah.
you got to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect.
It's not.
And you're going to make yourself crazy or sick.
It's not. And I just think it's a mental game for moms all the way. If you don't want to pursue your career right now, great. Stop having guilt over here, you know. If you want to pursue your career, but you feel like you should be 100% mom, you're going to have guilt over here. So I really think it's what you brought up is so good for people. I really think it's a mind game. And when you master that mental mind game and you understand that guilt is not an emotion of God, that it is not something that is for us to take on, your life will change. Your kids will change.
Yeah.
You'll have more quality time with them because they'll be just different. And it's a beautiful thing when you're all on the same page. We're a team. We're Team Higdon, and you have help. But I will say too, like you can always trade off help with friends too. Like if they can watch your kids one day, you can watch theirs. It doesn't have to be something you have to pay for. I know a lot of people that do that.
Agreed, for sure. So now we're to the bigger pivot, or the most recent pivot. Mm-hmm. So you have all this success, a very lucrative career, and one day you just say, you know, I've invested in real estate. I think I just want to sell real estate. Now, as a realtor for 32 years, I'm like, what the hell is she thinking?
Yeah, you and probably a lot of people.
Because for me, I know the grind of it.
Yeah.
And I know the good, the ups, the downs. I know the income flows or unflows. They don't flow. And so again, we're back to that. I'm going to make this decision and this is the direction I'm moving. How did you make that decision? What made you make the decision? Tell us that part of your journey because I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are. So I had always loved real estate from when I was a little kid. And, you know, one thing that your audience probably doesn't know about my story is that my mom was a hoarder And so I'm getting deep on some of these questions.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So my mom was a hoarder, and what that does to you emotionally as a child is it makes you just embarrassed and shameful and all the things. And it was not a good environment for me to be in. So whenever we would go to a new house, or we would go looking for a new house, I would step into a clean new design with beautiful artwork, and just, it made me feel safe. And so there's a part of me still that's that little girl that just loves the feeling of walking into a clean, beautiful space and the excitement of something new in that world and being able to do that over and over again. So I've loved real estate since I was a little girl. I was taken down a different direction, down a different path that gave me so many tactics for this profession, so many contacts, so many amazing things. And I realized that because back when I was doing social media to build up our network marketing business, I was in my glory. That marketing team was like my baby. And when we sold it to do training and consulting full time, because it's a very political industry, you don't want to be tied to one company, or else they say, oh, you're trying to steal people from over here. And, Ray would go consult for some pretty large companies and go in corporately. He couldn't be tied to a company. So we sold our position. All of that went away for me. And I realized, probably years too late, but I realized that a lot of the joy of building that team went away for me too. And I didn't love what I was doing. Made a lot of money doing what I was doing, but didn't feel joy around it anymore. And that was a very, very, very hard decision to make. I did not make that decision just like that. It took a lot of just reflection and consulting with our, other business minds and our coaches, and figuring out that if I don't do this, I'm always going to have regret. And so even if it doesn't work out, even if I hate it, even if I think this is not for me, if I don't do it, I'm going to have regret, and that's way worse to me than going back to what I was always doing anyway.
So I like how you say that you basically lost your joy and passion for one part, and you wanted to find that again. I did not know this statistic, but 79% of people are unhappy in their jobs, recent statistic. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And I think the best way for people to get back to that is to try different things. And I know there's this mentality post-COVID or post-2008, whatever the trauma was that you went through, that you got to take the job you can get. But I also think when you get the job you want, the money will come. If you really love it, the money will come.
Absolutely.
I mean, real estate's been successful for me, but I didn't find out until 32 years later it wasn't my 100% passion. I love dirt, and I love seeing things come out of the ground.
Yeah.
I love the development side of it. I love new construction. You did that on that little space? How did you figure that box out on that dirt?
Yeah.
That's my fascination. General real estate, I love getting people into their new homes.
Absolutely.
But there's a piece missing for me that is just in the general real estate part.
Yeah.
So I've always done well, but it didn't quite give me the same joy as doing the podcast interviews and getting with my audience, but also with my clients that I coach, because as a realtor, you're kind of part coach. You have to coach them through every step of the way.
Therapist, a marketer, a technology connoisseur. You're all the things. Yeah, absolutely.
Lock boxes are fun.
Yes.
When they work.
Right. No, you're so right. And I love that you switched after 32 years, or, I mean, I know you still do real estate, but that you chose a new path, because so many people would just say, well, I've done this for 32 years, so I guess can't do anything
else.
You
never actually retire from real estate, because I think you just stop when that lockbox doesn't open that last time, and you're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 70s or 80s. I mean, I know people who still sell real estate, and my mom started with them, and my mom's well into her 70s now. So
Wow.
sorry, Mom. And I see them around town. I'm like, wow, you're still in the business. Oh yeah, I'm always going to be. Oh well, good. I'm happy for you. I think that's great. But realtors never retire. I swear they don't, and it's part of our DNA now. I think for me, and I grew up in it. My grandfather was a builder.
Yeah.
So I grew up in it, and so dirt is kind of in my blood.
Yeah.
But helping people is my passion. So, but following that and taking that leap of faith and trading incomes, that can be scary.
Totally.
So I get it when people are having a hard time leaving. What I tell people is if you can get a little part-time job and try the job, or you try it on for size. You might think it's great, but then go, oh, I didn't know this was involved in that. And then you go back to your other job, and sometimes your other job looks even better then.
1,000%. Sometimes we go into things to realize that it wasn't the path for us, right? Now we know what we don't want to do. And not that you don't want to be scattered. You want to finish what you start. Okay. I don't want people to take away from this that I can just start a bunch of things and never finish. No, you finish what you start, what you committed to. Otherwise you'll never be successful. You'll never be successful in it. But at the same time, I think it's way better to try a few different things than just stand still and be in essentially purgatory, where you always have these feelings of should I should have, and you're shoulding again all over yourself.
Shoulding all over
right.
yourself. Right. No, I think there's something with finding your purpose and finding your joy, because as a mom, when I'm not happy, it's very hard to translate to the other. My daughter told me this. I'll share a personal story. My daughter told me recently about how I created an environment where it was very difficult to communicate with her. And when we nailed down the time frame, and she blames me for her anxiety and a few other things, I'm sure. It happens. Anybody out there who's got teenagers or anything like that, they will come back to you at some point and tell you all the things they did wrong, and they have no problem in doing it, which is fine, because you know what, as parents, we're not perfect.
Right.
We are going to mess up. We're going to miss a game. We're going to give them too much pressure, whatever it might be. But what I took away from that was when she gave me the time frame, I remember how miserable I was in that part of my life. There was this one little part for about 5 years that I was really struggling. My grandmother had just passed away. She was like my mom. And I didn't want to ask for help. Even when I figured out, oh, I'm not happy with my grandmother. I'm not happy where I'm at. I was trying to find my compass again.
Yeah.
And unfortunately it spills over to the people around us, which I think is another reason I'm kind of passionate about.
Absolutely.
Finding where you're at in your joy. And if you need to find your joy, let's go do it.
Love that.
Because otherwise it will spill around you. The relationship with yourself is going to translate to the people around you. If it's good and you're happy,
1,000%.
you're going to get there. So when you walked in, switching gears again, when you walked in, you were wearing a shirt.
Yes.
For Project Outreach. So tell me about that endeavor that you've added into your life.
One of many things.
One more thing. Let's just put one more thing in there. Tell me about Project Outreach and what it means to you and what it does in the community.
Yeah, so my good friend Tatiana, who, shameless plug, she does TB Lashes and Beauty, absolutely amazing. She told me about this mother and her daughter that were just going out in the community and had been for the last 15 years, just on their own dime, and wherever there was a need, they would fill it. So if somebody needed clothes, food, a ride, anything you can think of, a house fixed, they would do it on their own dime, and they had been operating like that for a long time. And turns out that organization was Project Outreach that the daughter had formed and started. And it's grown now the last 3 to 5 years. The word is out. Lots of people know about it in the Southwest Florida community. And Project Outreach now has a board, which I'm on it, and they have a winter gala every year, so the Naples Winter Gala, and they raise money for needs in the community. Last year, of course, was a lot dedicated towards the hurricane. So they even built someone a ramp so they could get in and out of their house because they were stuck in their home, in their mobile home. Their ramp had blown away and they couldn't get out because they weren't mobile. So they built them a ramp, they got them out, they got their house fixed, and they do that stuff over and over and over again.
So with Project Outreach, they have a gala coming up,
Mhm.
and that is when?
October. We don't have specific dates yet.
Okay, okay. So do they do just children, or is it families? It sounds like they do a little bit of everything.
They do a little bit of everything. Wherever there's a need, they fill it, and a lot with children. They even go into hospitals and will provide, they'll actually feed the patients if they aren't eating their meal. Sometimes they can't reach to
Right.
get their spoon, and the nurses are too busy and understaffed, and so they don't end up eating, and they just clear the food away. And so they go into hospitals, they pray over them, they reach up and help them eat their food. They do a lot with foster care, so all of it.
So we'll have to definitely make sure we put them in the links where we'll
Yeah,
have your
that would be
information on.
amazing.
So I'll
Thank
be
you.
happy to do that for you.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
think it sounds like a great organization that I've only recently learned about.
Yeah,
So they're
just
like
getting
silent but out there.
Yeah.
So what is next for Jessica Higdon in your career, any new projects, in your personal life? You're going to build another house? Like where are we at? What do we want to add to your list of things to do coming up?
Yes. So, we bought a home site and we have plans in the works. So,
How did I know?
yeah.
How did I know that was coming?
But just overall, I'm really focusing on this time with our kids is number one for me, and bringing them into what I'm doing. So we have an event that we run every year called Faith Over Fear, and Faith Over Fear is all about how to build a business through faith and faith-based principles. And so it's really more of a kingdom mentality type of event, and we switched that up a couple of years ago when we got saved. And so we're excited about that, and I really want to we as a company, as a husband and wife team, as for our family, we really want to formulate that into impacting those who impact others, right? So the few who influence the many, and bring in that culture again, that faith-based culture where the principles are there, because in a world today where things are running astray, nobody knows what the truth is, nobody knows what the next steps are, nobody knows who they are, which I know you help with greatly. We really want to take that to the next level globally. So we have that event coming up, and bringing our family into that, every dynamic, husband and wife, family, careers, all branches from having faith over fear.
Wow, I love that. I've heard of the event. I have not been to it. So I know you transitioned from a previous event. So we'll definitely add that to our links for you as well.
You.
And if somebody wanted to work with you as selling real estate, where would they get a hold of Jessica Higdon?
I'm all over social media. So you can just look up Instagram, Facebook, Jessica Higdon, at Jessica Higdon 99.
Great. And so I thank you, Jessica, for being a guest on today's show. And thank you to our audience for joining the Kristen Weardon Show. And we will also have all of Jessica's contact information, anything we talked about, in the links connected to the video. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.